Welcome, Forever Buffs. Today we're catching up with Joe Klecker, a 7-time first-team All-American and an 11-time NCAA qualifier at the University of Colorado Boulder. Joe, it's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, Joe, I know you just graduated from the university, and I know things were a little different on the graduation side, but before we get into kind of how the year ended, can you tell us a little bit about your experience at the university?
Yeah, I mean, it was good. I got to do 5 years. I majored in biochemistry, which was a great program. I really enjoyed it. And then we got to run for CU for 5 years. It was maybe a little hard to move away from home initially, but I really found kind of a second home here in Boulder.
Well, I know Boulder embraced you with open arms. It's quite a running community, and as a runner, I'm sure you had a lot of fans, both from the university as well as our Forever Buffs all over the country and our Boulder citizens. I know running on the trails around here, sometimes you run past a gold medal winner in the marathon from the Olympics or somebody who competed on the world stage. So I would imagine Boulder was a great spot to be in as a runner.
Yeah, no, the community here for running is kind of second to none. It's, if you come here in the summer, people travel all over the country just to train here. So being able to kind of call this your second home is great, great spot to be for training.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what happened this past spring, because I think you had an absolutely incredible career here at the university. That goes without question. But unfortunately, the pandemic cut your experience a little bit short, unfairly. Tell us a little bit about how you heard about that and how that all came down during that last semester when you were competing.
So yeah, we were already down in Albuquerque, ready to compete at the NCAA championships. And yeah, so then that Friday night when the meet got canceled, we just booked flights home and came back to Boulder. And at that point, the outdoor season hadn't yet been canceled. So we just kind of regrouped and got back into training. It was obviously it took a couple of days to really kind of grasp what had happened. I mean, we did our pre-meet that Friday morning to prepare for the race, and we were all ready to go. And then just within it seemed like every 20 minutes there was a new closure or something being canceled. So it was kind of hard to take it all in, but then we got back to Boulder, kind of regrouped. And then within, I think, a day or two, they ended up canceling all of the spring sports as well. And at that point, yeah, it was just it was weird because we were still kind of meeting for practice, which eventually that got cut as well. And classes got moved online. And so you went from, before we traveled to Albuquerque, you're going to class every day, you're getting ready for this indoor meet, to a week later, you're going to class online and you're not really have any races on the calendar that you're preparing for. And, my college career was, done for that year, unless I would have chosen to come back for a 6th year.
Well, we're excited for your next step. And I know you have your sights set on the Olympics. And what a lot of folks don't know is you have some special insight into what it's like to be an Olympian. Maybe tell us why that is with your family background, that maybe you have a leg up on what that experience might be like.
Yeah, so I guess I'm pretty fortunate in having 2 parents who were professional runners, and my mom was on the 92 Olympic marathon team for the US. And so, yeah, I mean, I think she has basically told me all, so many stories from traveling to Barcelona and winning the US championship to qualify for the Olympics. And so hearing these amazing experiences that she had, 1, it really motivates me, but 2, it just kind of shows me how realistic it is to be able to accomplish something like that. And, obviously if you know an Olympian or, it's a little different when it's your mom, who's, I can call her anytime and she can just, talk me through things, because she went through a full running career of her own. And so it's nice having her as kind of a mentor going through this process myself now.
Well, it sounds like you have some good genes for the running side of the house in terms of competition. And I think that's probably going to bode well for you. It sounds like it has already in your career. Tell us a little bit about how COVID has affected your training, because I know a big part of running is there's coaching and there's the team aspect, but there's also, it is a sport you can do on your own. So maybe talk a little bit about how COVID has changed that.
Yeah, so initially when all races kind of got canceled, we'd go to, training is very much in phases. So when you don't really have any races on the calendar, you're really far out from a race. A lot of your training is just a lot of kind of base training, we call it. So a lot of mileage, a lot of just kind of general fitness. So basically once all the races got canceled, we just kind of rose our mileage back up to around 100, 110 a week, and you're just kind of getting general fitness in a sense. You're not really training specifically for one distance. So that was what we did initially when COVID hit for probably 2 months, was just kind of getting that general fitness and just kind of being ready to, start training specifically once a race did come on the calendar. And now you're kind of seeing some races start to pop up in August, and they're pretty small, no fans, but people want to race, and they're doing everything they can to do that safely. And so now we've kind of transitioned more into that kind of what we call specific training, where you're getting ready for a specific race distance. You're not just running mileage and getting general fitness.
So the Olympics obviously aren't happening this summer. They've been pushed out at least till 2021 in Japan. Maybe tell us a little bit about how that does or does not affect you for the Olympic kind of dream that you have.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would be a little selfish to say that in a way it does help a lot of college athletes coming right out of school, because typically you would gear up for the Olympic trials like it's, it is the biggest race of the year. But for many college athletes who have kind of that Olympic dream, you also have the NCAA championships, you have the conference championships, and it's just not realistic to perform at the highest level, 4 weeks out of like a 6-week period. And so like this year, if the trials had happened as normal, the Olympic trials, I think it would be about 7 days after the NCAA championships. And not only would you have to recover and get ready for another race that's equally or probably much higher level than the NCAA championships, that time is also used to find sponsorships, sign with an agent. So that 1 week period is like crazy stressful normally. And so now that it's been pushed off a year, it gives us kind of the luxury to adapt to our next step. So for me, like a new coach, new people to train with, you're adjusting to a lot of things that are different, but now I have a year to do that, to get ready for next year's Olympic trials. But yeah, I guess the biggest thing for people coming out of college is that it gives you that time to adapt and get ready for it, where coming right off the NCAA season is definitely not the ideal way to qualify for an Olympic team.
Yeah, there is a silver lining there, isn't there? And it's tough to say that when things are so tough right now, and the experience that you had, and all college students across the country and most of the world closing out your college experience. That was, I'm sure, a bit disappointing. But let's go back to something that I think a lot of folks maybe don't know about you. You're from Minnesota originally. And as everybody knows, the Black Lives Matter movement came back into the forefront with the killing of George Floyd. I think one of the interesting things that I heard about you is that you raised a bunch of funds to help back in Minnesota. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I was back in Minnesota for about a month, and then right after I left was when, the George Floyd murder happened, and, like you said, Black Lives Matter was back kind of in the forefront of the news, but I was back in Colorado now, and so it was a little weird, like feeling like I had left just before all of this stuff took place, and there was, obviously a lot of the protests going on, and in a way, being in Colorado, it felt like I was just kind of removed and a little bit disconnected from, you know, the community that I grew up in for 18 years of my life. And so I just kind of thought of, you know, obviously you're getting on social media so many places in need of money and raising money, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. And so I kind of did my research and found an organization that I really believed in. I thought that was making a big difference, and that was a fund that was raising money to rebuild Lake Street, which is where a lot of the protests and riots had taken place, and a lot of businesses had been kind of destroyed. And so I just kind of thought of like obviously I could donate to the fund, but I figured that if I can raise awareness for it, I could, you know, maybe create something much bigger. And so what I chose to do was kind of auction off some of my old CU apparel. And I always had people messaging me and asking me to purchase like my old jerseys and stuff. And to me, like, you know, getting that, like the jerseys and the CU stuff means much more to me than like money that I would get for it. But I figured that auctioning off some of it for a good cause would be, you know, pretty meaningful. And so I didn't really have any goals for how much money I wanted to raise, but I just figured that anything that people donated was more than, you know, if I didn't do anything. And so it just kind of blew up and people started donating, and it eventually raised around $10,000 just over for rebuilding Lake Street.
Well, that's an awesome story, and we really appreciate what you've done, using the power that you have as somebody who is looked up to by younger runners, who hopefully we'll see on that Olympic stage here very soon, and leveraging the community that's around you to help do some good. Speaking of the community around you, Forever Buffs, we have about 300,000 alums that are all over the world. We call them Forever Buffs. Tell me a little bit, just quickly as we close out, what it means to be a Forever Buff to you.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like not only being a part of, you know, alumni of the cross country and track team, being part of such a legacy there, but also just like, you know, when you're out and you meet, you know, you see other buffs, it's just like you have this sense of community and it feels very close knit. Like I'll be back in Minnesota, and when people hear that I graduated from CU, it's like you're finding these, you know, former buffs all over the country, and initially you already have this talking point, and like you feel like you're in this community all the time, which is pretty cool.
Well, we're excited to have you as a member of the community, and we really appreciate you taking the time to join us today to talk a little bit about what's been going on in your life. We'll look forward to watching you as hopefully you stand on that podium on the biggest stage in the world. And if not there, many other places, because we are excited to watch your career develop. And of course, thousands and thousands of Forever Buffs will be cheering you on all across the world. So thanks again for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.